Happy New Year, everyone. Recently, I got a request for a reading that inspired me to create a new spread. I often do that actually with requests that are not necessarily more detailed, but that are fairly specific. I do my best to create a spread that encapsulates the essence of the request and hopefully generates also the essence of what's sought by that question. So I wrote to the person who requested the reading and got permission to share the initial question as well as the reading. So this reading is for that person. And the request was this: I'm seeking some guidance on how to proceed in my career. I'm struggling deeply as to whether I should follow my current path, seek my passion, or go in a different direction. I'm so lost in how to proceed. Looking down on myself, I see a childlike figure sitting cross-legged with my head down and tornadoes surrounding me, but never touching. So I think this is a situation that many of us face at many points in our life where we really don't know what to do, and maybe we feel a bit stuck. We're perhaps grounded in where we are, but not in a good way. Usually being grounded is considered a good thing, but sometimes it can lead to stagnancy and feeling stuck and just not knowing where to go. At the same time, when I first read that, especially with the tornadoes surrounding her, I thought the eye of the storm. So it's like she's the calm center, but around her there's all this stuff happening and in a way threatening to carry her away in a direction that she may not want to go, but she may not have a choice. And yet at the same time, she's sitting steady in herself. It sounds to me like she's probably a meditator, someone who meditates regularly and is fairly secure in herself, but is perhaps so secure in that state of observation or of non-doing that the next step forward, which we all have to take, is eluding her a little bit. There was also a little bit there looking down on myself. It makes me think that perhaps she is experiencing at times some out-of-body type situations, some disassociation that is actually quite different from being grounded. It's almost the opposite of being grounded. And so there may actually be some work to be done there in noticing the times when you feel stuck. Are those the times when you tend to disassociate from your current state? And when you're facing those challenges of where should I go to next, is that the time when you tend to kind of float off a little bit and see your body as being quite grounded and stable and perhaps stagnant, while at the same time the mind is observing from an outside perspective, almost as if life isn't really happening to you? So that actually might be a first question. But the reason that I came to the Chariot as a starting point for this spread is because it combines those two elements of earth, that groundedness, and air, which in its extreme, when air is ungrounded, is that tendency to drift off, whether it's an actual out-of-body experience, actual disassociation, or just the sense of daydreaming and escaping into the mind, sometimes realistically to plan forward in your life, but also often we all do this to fantasize and to escape what's going on currently in our life. And sometimes as an avoidance technique to not have to worry about the here and now, but rather to think of other things that are a little bit more comfortable. So the Chariot kind of combines those two ideas for me. And when the Chariot's really embodied, the positive aspects of the mind and the positive aspects of dreaming and fantasy and analysis aid the positive aspects of earth, the positive aspects of being grounded, being secure in yourself, and knowing well what direction you want to go in. That seat of being that we often look for and sometimes find in meditation. The combination of air and earth can also have its negative sides as well, those feelings of stuckness or of floating away. And so hopefully the Chariot brings those together. So the spread is going to be based on the Chariot. And I've got a large version of the Chariot card out, and I'm going to be doing the actual draw from my mini deck. But I'm going to keep the Chariot out as a reference because we're also going to reference some of the elements and some of the other aspects of that particular card. So, and I haven't shuffled them yet. So I'll just do a quick shuffle. I have a jumper. Make the jumper the first card. There's often questions about what to do with jumpers on some of the groups that I frequent. And I personally love jumpers. I always try to use them in my spreads whenever they happen. All right. So we're going to go card 1, 2, 3. And these are for the 3 potential directions that you might be thinking of going in. Isn't that interesting? We get the Chariot and the Devil. Interesting. And then we'll go opposite to that, 4, 5, 6 to reach wow, the groundedness, or what is the seat from which you can drive forward. And then the summation card in the middle, the Eye of the Storm. Wow. So this is quite a shocker spread for me, actually, to be honest. I mean, I'm always kind of surprised by what cards come up in any reading, but this is rather intriguing. Not only is it intriguing because we get a Chariot in the Chariot spread, but also because we get 2 more cards that have the exact same elements in them, Judgment and the Page of Air. We also have 2 other majors, the Tower and the Devil. So even without looking at any specific plans, any specific ideas, we already get a sense that the decision that's made is going to be a very significant one, likely a life-changing one. And there's a potential that one of the decisions, one of the choices, is going to be a total upheaval in your life. For good or for bad. Hopefully for good. We all hope for good. And it may be time. I mean, when we feel stuck, sometimes something just needs to break down completely and totally change. And then once things totally change, then we're able to actually drive forward with much more ease. There's a lot less struggle once that breakthrough happens. So it's not necessarily anything to be scared of, but it certainly is something to be prepared for, in the sense that it's going to be significant, it's going to be life-changing. So beyond that, we also have on the 2 sides a potential, looking at the Chariot card, a potential for the side that is revealed to you, the side that you're aware of, or the side that's more favorable for whatever reason. So maybe the side that you're leaning to because it seems like a better option or set of options. And then this side is the shadow side, the darker aspects, the things maybe that you're afraid of, things that maybe you're not even aware of as possibilities, or things that you're trying to not pay too much attention to because the prospect of them is maybe a little bit too scary or too unfamiliar. Sometimes scary doesn't necessarily mean bad. Sometimes it's so unfamiliar, it's unknown territory, that it's always easier to go into the familiar, even if the familiar is not productive, not conducive to our growth. the familiar is always a little bit more favorable. We tend to gravitate to that because it's easier. It's, using the devil card as the analogy, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. And most of the time, the comfortable choice is the devil you know. There are certainly special people who always go for the devil they don't know, but it's not really the norm, or at least we're culturally told that that's not the norm. In that lighter side, in that more familiar side, or the more seen side, is, again, this necessity to drive forward with the Chariot, but also the Judgment card, which to me is largely about processing our intellectual aspects, our mental aspects, through the groundedness of things like meditation or experiences. So you think of a plan, you execute the plan, and then through the experience of that plan taking form, you then change your ideas and your approach and your perspective to that plan. So it's really kind of an aspect of integration of the mind with the body, the mind with the self. So that also ties into this page of air and this idea of being a meditator in the middle with all this stuff happening around you. To get a little bit more specific, as three potential choices, this Eight of Fire is one thing that you might be thinking of. So Eight of Fire is breaking away from the Rider-Waite imagery, which is 4 staves flying through the air. I actually tend to think of 8s as being a very stable number. Think of a cube with its 8 points. So it's like a square, but then it's a doubled square. So it's kind of double the stability, double the security of the 4. And so in that double security within the realm of fire, the realm of action or doing or efforts, it seems like there's something that you've been doing for a long time. You're in the habit of it. It's something, it's a task or a job that you're familiar with. And you're familiar with it to the point that you could even do it in your sleep. It's just kind of this day in, day out kind of job that you're probably quite good at, but it's also maybe a little bit boring. You feel a bit stuck. You feel like your action isn't really going anywhere. It's not really, your efforts aren't bearing much fruit or much fulfillment in yourself. So it may be a job that pays the bills and brings in money, and it may be fine from all those perspectives, but it's not really deeply fulfilling. And part of that could just be the repetition, but part of it could just be that it's a kind of a standardized form of expressing your effort and your energy. And you may feel like, I think my energy could be used in a more productive way. Not only productive, but maybe even in a more efficient way. So maybe I don't have to extend so much energy into this thing that's kind of boring or kind of repetitive, but maybe I can expend that amount of energy or even less energy in something that's more fulfilling to me, in something that's more exciting. So that's one possibility. So I get the feeling that that's already the situation you're currently in. And so that was one of the choices. That was, should I stay where I am, follow my current path, seek my passion, or go in a different direction? So I would say that the devil is probably speaking to seek your passion. The devil is very much about passion. It's the embodiment of fire, where Eight of Fire is certainly a card that speaks about passion, has an element of passion to it. That 8 kind of, the number 8 kind of stifles passion to some degree. Whereas with the devil's the embodiment of passion, in the sense that it's the embodiment of fire. And it's also appearing on this darker side. So I would ask yourself, that passion that you have, is it something that certain people around you would prefer that you didn't go in that direction, or trying to kind of ease you away from that and say, I don't know that that's so good for you for whatever reasons. Or maybe you get the feeling that that's the case, that people are would not be so excited for you if you went in that direction. So maybe it's something that's unconventional, maybe something that's a little bit taboo, at least in the circles that you are currently in. And so there's maybe a question about, how will I be looked at if I follow this direction? So it's your passion, but the thing that's holding you back from it is really the boundaries that the people around you, the society you're in, is not allowing you that freedom. So I would really sit with that in particular, about your shadow self and about that passion that you're thinking about following, and working with why am I not following it? Why am I resisting that? Am I resisting it because it's something that I'm not really passionate about, or that I don't believe I'll have success in? Or am I not following it because of outside influences that are telling me I won't be successful in that, even though you may, at your very core, believe that you will be successful? And to some degree, those deep passions have to be followed. I don't recommend doing anything foolish, puts you in a difficult position if things don't work out. But at the same time, passions are meant to be followed. There's that saying about how people don't regret the things that they did do, but they regret the things that they didn't do. So don't let that be something that you regret never having done. If you want to play it a bit on the safe side, see if there's a way to follow that passion, at least feed that passion, in a way where you don't have to give much up, at least in the beginning. Later on, if it seems to be going well for you, then you can give up more. It breeds itself in a way. On the other hand, again, I don't know what that passion is for you, but it may be the type of thing that you have to drop everything else that you're currently involved with and run with that passion. And that could be what this link between the Chariot and the Tower and the Devil is, that link being the Tower, where your current state needs to be destroyed. And actually, it's oppositional in the spread to that 8 of Fire, that day-to-day effort, status quo effort there, and familiar effort. So it's interesting that the Tower bridges the Chariot, which actually also says kind of get up and run with it, and the Devil, which is the passion. The Tower is bridging those two, and it's oppositional to that current state of the 8 of Fire. So that's something to think about. A little bit further into that Chariot thing, the third option was go in a different direction, which go in a different direction could be actually following your passion. So I'm not sure how closely related your passion is to your current path. Maybe they're quite close. Maybe you're already working in the field you always wanted to be, but you're not in the position you wanted to be, or you're not doing that aspect of that field that you wanted to be. And that can happen often in many people's careers. It's not necessarily, again, it's not necessarily for the good or for the bad. Sometimes people find themselves in a different spot than when they're what they expected to be in, and then they end up really loving it. It's like, I never imagined I'd be here, but I'm here, and actually I'm really happy about it because it suits me well. So I don't know how different your passion is from your current path. So maybe this Chariot is representing a totally different path, divergent from either of these two. Or maybe the Chariot, you said, or go in a different direction. So maybe that Chariot is oppositional to the devil, or maybe there's a way of finding this passion in the devil card and going in a different path that's oppositional to your current path, but is in conjunction, it joins with your passion. So I get the feeling just by the layout of the spread is that this different direction and this passion card do need to converge, and that as they converge, as you go in that different direction, that is your passion, it will involve a kind of a destruction of your current way of life, your current familiarity, but it'll be something that you'll enjoy much more. And so that kind of leads also to this integration. I talked about these two being oppositional. I kind of also want to talk about these oppositions, the devil and judgment. Again, with the devil and judgment, we wind up with the same elements as the tower. So the linking point between the devil and judgment is the tower again. And the tower isn't also necessarily just destruction, but it's also the revelation that comes from that destruction. It doesn't even have to be destruction of your outer world. It can be the destruction of how you view yourself. When people kind of crumble in meditation, there is, in that moment, there's also a revelation of who they really are. And people will describe it as a crumbling of their old selves, a destruction of who they were, destruction, sometimes they talk about it as a destruction of the ego, which I don't necessarily agree with, because even afterwards we still have an ego. It's kind of a necessary thing. But that destruction and subsequent revelation is also very closely related to the judgment card and the revelation that comes from that opportunity in judgment. Sometimes judgment's also considered the calling card, the card of calling. So it's interesting that that calling card is right above the Chariot. That signifies to me that yes, your calling is this Chariot, this other direction that's probably different from your current path. But the calling is also related oppositionally to the devil. And so an exploration of that shadow side, as I was talking about, will lead you more clearly and more purely into this direction. That also then brings us to the King of Air. And the King of Air is both oppositional to the Chariot, but it's also standing in between the Eight of Fire and your passion. So the King of Air is highly analytical. It's someone who is not just smart, but intelligent, but they're also they live in their mind and they dissect things with the mind, and their fallback is to plan and to analyze and to think things through, which can be really great. But again, it can also be stifling. It can also make you stuck in thought, stuck in planning, and it can cause you actually to think yourself out of certain movements, think you out of doing certain things that otherwise might be really helpful to you. So it seems like one of these barriers, especially again because it's on the shadow side and it's in the earth position on the shadow side between these two cards, that to me seems like the blockage between going from where you currently are into your passion. You're thinking about it too much. You're analyzing it. You're worried about how am I going to look? How is this going to play out? How is it going to affect me? How is it going to affect my loved ones? Which is a perfectly valid question to ask, of course. But it shouldn't be to the expense of actually pursuing those passions. And it's oppositional to the Chariot in a similar sense, that it's it's the air aspect is preventing you from moving forward. That idea that perhaps you're disassociating or perhaps you're escaping into your mental realm in order to avoid doing anything. And that's a very, very big mistake for a lot of people. It doesn't mean you should always be in movement, but one of the aspects of meditation and observation is we have this idea that the meditator just sits as the quiet eye of the storm. But the eye of a storm, when you follow like how a hurricane travels up a coast, yes, the eye of the storm is the calmest point, but that calm point keeps moving. It's moving with the whole hurricane. And so you want to be careful not to be so still, not to be that grounded and anchored eye of the storm so deeply that it prevents you from moving. And I think that's part of what this King of Air and the air aspect in general for you is that it's causing you to escape yourself and escape the realities of what you need to do. And so you're facing a state in your life where you need to move forward. There's change that must happen. And if you don't take an active participation in that change will be made for you. Either change will be made for you, or that change, the opportunity to make that change will bypass you and you'll still be stuck here. So I'm not saying that this is necessarily going to be bad. If you're enjoying that path, fine. But if it's denying you of your passion, I would explore that a little bit more. And again, there's a link between these two, in at least in the element. It seems to me that there's either skills that you're using in this path that will help you here to explore your passion, or maybe even in the same field, like I was saying before. Maybe it's in the same field, it's just a different part of the same field that you need to explore and that will fulfill that passion side. So it doesn't necessarily mean a totally different direction, as in here, but this is a relationship between the two. And then that centered part, the page of air. So in the page of air, we have an interesting reversal of air and earth. So in the Chariot, the card that initially inspired this spread, this reading, air is above earth. It's kind of in turmoil in the actual card, but if we look at the border, air is on earth. And that's that aspect that I was saying right at the beginning about possibly feeling out of body, or at least escaping into the mind, where you're leaving the groundedness of your physical being and escaping into the mind. So that's expressed there in that initial place. Here in the center, with the page of air, it's a reversal of that, where earth is above air. There's still a strong aspect of air involved there. It's still going to be an analytical thing. You're still going to need to plan. You're still going to need to think about things realistically and fantastically to some degree. Think big, but also think realistic. But it's this earth aspect that's coming down on top of the air aspect, and earth is in the center. So the crux, the starting point and the real urge to change will be related to this passion, but it has to come from a place of deep knowing and deep rootedness in yourself and what you really want. And that will require some meditation. In the meditations though, when you're sitting in meditation, don't let yourself fly out of your body, especially when things become uncomfortable. When you're looking at ideas and thoughts and sensations that do make you a little bit uncomfortable, and things that you don't want to face, don't let air take over there where you escape them, but instead stay rooted in your body, stay rooted in the sensations of your body and in the ground that is you and the essence. You can even think back to some degree at what made you feel the most you when you were younger? When do you most feel yourself? Do you most feel yourself when you're at work in your current path? Do you most feel yourself when you're following your passion? Or do you most feel yourself when you're going oppositional to your current path? Or are there aspects of all three that make you feel yourself, make you feel fulfilled, and make you feel, oh, this is me, that somehow you can integrate that card of integration, the judgment card, that you can integrate so that those various aspects that make you feel like you, make you feel most yourself, can all be integrated in perhaps none of these three options directly, but all of them at the same time. That idea that the chariot yokes two oppositional things to create a third path, to create a third thing. And so maybe those two oppositional things are coming this way or this way, but the wheels keep turning. And when the two oppositional actions come forward to produce a third, that's really where the energy and the action and the movement of the chariot comes from, that really moves you forward. So I hope that's helpful also to those of you who are watching this spread. One last thing I just want to look at. So overall, we have the three elements of air, fire, and earth. And in many combinations, many pairings, all three of those elements get combined. Here, 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 they get combined. But what's interesting is going around the side here with the 8 and the king and the devil, we don't get that combination. We don't get the combination of air and earth, and we don't get the combination of the three elements that produce the tower. Whereas in pretty much every other combination, we're either looking at judgment and the chariot as air and earth, or we're looking at the tower as air, earth, and fire. But here, in these two combinations, we're only getting air and fire, which combine in this deck, combine to strength and the sun. So here I would be inclined to look at strength as the combination card between the 8 of fire and the king of air. And so it requires, number one, going to a job or taking a path that is very repetitive and putting forth as much effort as it appears that you are in that path takes a lot of strength to begin with. And it may take an equal amount of strength to pull yourself away from that, an equal or greater amount of strength to pull yourself away from that. And that could be what you're avoiding, is there's so much effort, there's so much strength that you're already putting into this path that it may feel like there's not enough oomph, not enough strength left to pull you away from that. No matter how much you may be passionate about this, no matter how much you want to go in a different direction, it may just feel like you don't have the strength to go there. And maybe this mental talk is even further draining you and even further preventing you from having the strength. But at the same time, because strength as a potential card here joins both pairings, it's suggesting to me that yes, you do have the strength. It's just a matter of tapping into it. And sometimes we think strength means more effort. Often I find strength actually means not more effort, but right effort. What's the efficient amount of effort to put forward here? And it's not necessarily a struggle. Sometimes strength is in moving with the direction that is already happening instead of battling against that direction. So that's something to think about too. Think about, how much am I fighting against myself, and where are there aspects that I could follow, that I could go along in the same direction, but maybe just steer a little bit one way or the other. That's another aspect of the chariot too, where the chariot already has a clear direction, but the charioteer can steer this way or that way. It still goes in a certain direction, but they can steer the chariot. They can even, given enough of an arc, the charioteer can even turn the chariot around in another direction. But it takes a fair bit of effort to do that, and a bit of birth to go around the corner. So a little bit of time for that to happen. So that may also be an aspect of your current situation, is that you may just need to give yourself a little bit more time for it to all turn around. But when it does turn around, it'll be totally different than where you started. And then here, between the King of Air and the Devil, we could look at strength again, and all of the things I just said about strength apply there. But we could also look at the Sun as the second combination card between air and fire. And the Sun, in its shadow side aspects, is sometimes looking at things too brightly, or things being so in your face, certain things being so in your face and so bright, so illuminated, that you miss out on certain other aspects. So that could be an aspect too in there. And it could even be that combination card being near the shadow side of the spread. It could just be that in looking at your shadow aspects, you'll bring the necessary illumination, the necessary brightness to be able to then go forward. Almost as though this side is kind of like the dusk or the nighttime side, but this combination between air and fire, bringing the sun, is bringing the sun and rising the sun up on the night side to bring you over the spread into the daytime side, the illuminated side, where you can integrate and follow your calling and run with the chariot. I think that's everything I have to say about that. Of course, as soon as I finish, there's always other aspects. For the person this was for, I hope that was really helpful. And thank you for letting me share your reading with YouTube. If anyone else has other insights on this spread that may be helpful to the person who had the question, you can leave those in the comments below. And I invite you to try the spread out yourselves and see what variations you get on your own. I'll be back soon with more techniques. Happy New Year. Bye for now.